There is a flower growing in gardens all over the world. It is tall, it is elegant. Children have reached for its bell-shaped blooms for centuries. And it can stop a human heart. The same plant, the exact same plant, sits behind one of the most important heart medicines ever discovered. It has killed people. It has saved millions more. The only difference between the two is the dose. This is the story of how a poison became a cure. It runs through a secret recipe guarded by an old woman in the English countryside. A recipe of 20 herbs the doctors couldn't crack, and one physician who spent 10 years pulling it apart, one patient at a time. By the end, you'll understand why doctors still both fear this flower and prescribe it. Keep that old woman in mind. We'll come back to her. This is the channel where we dig up what the textbooks left buried. Let's begin. Its name is Foxglove. To science, Digitalis. In 1542, a German physician named Leonhard Fuchs catalogued it. He named it after the German word Fingerhut, thimble, for the way each blossom slips neatly over a fingertip. Digitalis, of the finger. But country people had known it far longer, and they were wary of it. Every part of the plant carries the same quiet danger. We are not going to tell you how it was used, because there is no safe way for you to use it. And that is the entire point of this story. 500 years ago, a Swiss physician named Paracelsus wrote a line that medicine has never forgotten. The dose makes the poison. Nothing is poison. Everything is poison. What decides which is how much. Foxglove is the perfect proof. In one amount, it is among the deadliest things in an English garden. In another, smaller, exact, measured by science, it is a lifeline. For most of history, no one knew where that line was. People simply guessed, and paid for guessing. But here's what nobody talks about. The people who tried it before the science caught up didn't just fail their patients. Some of them killed them with the cure. And the breakthrough didn't come from a doctor, or a laboratory, or a university. It came from an old woman, and nobody even wrote down her name. Which brings us to a kitchen in Shropshire, in the west of England, in the year 1775. There lived a woman, her name lost to history, who had a reputation. She could cure dropsy. Dropsy was a terror of the age. The body swelled with fluid, the legs, the belly, the lungs slowly filling, until a person could no longer lie down to breathe. We now know most of these cases were heart failure, a failing heart unable to keep fluid moving. Back then, it was a death sentence. Trained physicians watched their patients drown from the inside and could do nothing. And yet, this old woman, with no medical training, sometimes succeeded where the doctors had failed. Her remedy was a closely guarded family secret, a brew of 20 or more different herbs. She wasn't telling anyone which one did the work. Word of her cures reached a physician named William Withering. Now, Withering was dangerous. Not in the way Foxglove is dangerous. He was dangerous in the way only a botanist physician could be. Because he looked at a recipe of 20 unknown herbs and didn't see a mystery. He saw a puzzle. And puzzles Withering solved. What he found inside that old woman's remedy would take him 10 years to prove, and it nearly ended more lives than it saved. Withering was a doctor and a serious botanist, exactly the wrong man to keep a secret from. He looked at a recipe of 20 herbs and asked the question almost no one in his era thought to ask. Which one is actually doing this? He worked through the list. Most of those plants did nothing for the body's fluid. One stood out. One had the kind of power that could swing a body between life and death. Foxglove. Now, here is where most people in 1775 would have stopped. They'd have had their answer, prescribed it freely, and killed a great many patients, because they had no idea how much to give. Give too little, nothing happens. Give too much. Withering didn't stop. He did something that, at the time, was almost radical. He spent the next 10 years studying this single plant. He recorded case after case, when it worked, when it failed, when it harmed. By the end, he had documented over 150 patients. And critically, he wrote down his failures alongside his successes, when it would have been far easier and better for his reputation to publish only the wins. In 1785, he published it all, an account of the foxglove and some of its medical uses. It looks, to a modern eye, like something we take for granted now. Careful records, honest reporting of what went wrong, an attempt to find the right amount, the dose that healed without harming. But in 1785, this was something new. It is remembered today as one of the first real clinical drug studies in the history of medicine. A folk remedy from an unnamed old woman turned by 10 years of patient, honest work into medicine. But here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Withering documented 163 cases. Not all of them ended the way he hoped. And the line he spent a decade searching for, the line between cure and coffin, is still razor thin today. This flower is still on hospital pharmacy shelves right now. Your doctor may have prescribed it. So what is foxglove actually doing inside a human heart? The plant makes a family of compounds called cardiac glycosides, chemicals that act directly on the muscle of the heart. From foxglove, science eventually isolated two of them by name, digitoxin, and from a cousin plant, the woolly foxglove, digoxin. In a precise, purified, carefully measured dose, they make a weak heartbeat with more force and a racing heartbeat more steadily. That is the cure. In an imprecise dose, those same compounds throw the heart's rhythm into chaos. That is the poison. One molecule, two outcomes. The line between them is exactly what Withering spent a decade trying to find. For 2 centuries, Digitalis was one of the most important heart drugs on Earth. Today, with newer medicines available, doctors reach for it less often. But it is still prescribed, still on pharmacy shelves, still keeping certain failing hearts going. And researchers are now studying these same compounds for an entirely unexpected frontier, their effect on cancer cells. But, and this matters, every gram of it is made and measured in a laboratory and prescribed by a doctor who knows the exact line. Never the raw plant. Never by guessing. The flower in the garden is still a poison. It always was. This is what we love about the old plants. We tend to imagine medicine arrived in clean white laboratories, but again and again the trail leads back to a kitchen, a folk recipe, an old woman the history books never bothered to name. Foxglove was never good or evil. It was simply powerful and waiting for someone patient enough to learn its measure. The poison and the cure were always the same flower. We didn't tame this plant. We just learned to be more careful when we pointed. Quick and important. This is history and science, not medical advice. And foxglove is genuinely toxic in every part. Admire it in the garden, never, ever tasted. Here's what I want to know from you. Would you have taken a remedy made from a known poison if it was your only option, your only chance? Drop your answer below. I read every one. If you want more stories like this, the plants that built empires, ended kings, and saved the people doctors gave up on, subscribe. I'm building a quiet library of them here. Next episode. A flower so beautiful and so profitable that it started a war between empires. The opium poppy. Until then, watch where you step in the garden.